So what you're looking at is a joint naval patrol between the Philippines and the United States in the South China Sea. These exercises lasted from the 19th to the 21st of November and also involved Australia, Canada, and Japan in a multilateral exercise focusing on combined maritime strength. Additionally, we see now US F-15s and a Filipino KAI T-50, which are built by Korea, as well as a C-130, which could be US or Filipino. Both countries have them. But they are conducting maritime strength patrols, what they call maritime strength patrols and joint air patrols over the South China Sea in order to ensure freedom of the seas. The US, Vietnam, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Canada, and other Pacific players continue to deepen ties with the Philippines. This development, while strengthening the defense and security posture of the nations I just listed, obviously casts a long shadow over relations with China. Incidentally, much like Russia, these relations would not be growing tighter were it not for Chinese belligerence in the South China Sea against countries like the Philippines, Vietnam, Japan, etc. Despite a series of summits between these countries and China, there still are tense relations, and a lot of it has to do with rising concerns over Taiwan. The burgeoning U.S. defense partnership with the Philippines and Vietnam and others in the region has raised alarm bells in Beijing when it concerns Taiwan. China perceives the growing military cooperation as an escalation of tensions, warning the Philippines of potential repercussions. The proximity of the Philippines, specifically the Marvelous Island, to Taiwan adds a strategic dimension to this concern, positioning the Philippines as a critical player in regional security. The northernmost tip of the Philippines is only 186 miles from Taiwan. For reference, China is 81 miles from Taiwan, so they're actually closer, but that means that the Philippines is closer to Taiwan than Boston is to New York City. There are talks between the U.S. and the Philippines to place a base in Batanes, Philippines, which is only 230 miles from Taiwan. This would give a strategic advantage to the U.S. The expansion of U.S. military bases in the Philippines offers significant tactical advantages for the U.S. and its partner. This move is seen as a countermeasure to China's potential action in Taiwan, giving the U.S. a strategic foothold in the region, or a greater strategic foothold in the region, especially if the Philippines allows for not only U.S. but multinational basing. The enhanced military ties between the Philippines and the U.S. have strained Chinese-Philippines relations, but they haven't really changed anything on the trade front. As the U.S. strengthens its alliance with the Philippines, there's a growing perception that it is drawing the Philippines into its sphere of influence, particularly in opposition to China, and that China's global influence itself continues to be far less than that of the U.S. This military agreement serves as a cautionary tale to China, which has been expanding its military presence in the South China Sea via island building and belligerent and sometimes dangerous activities, such as when last week a Chinese ship approached an Australian frigate in the East China Sea, deployed its underwater sonar while Australian divers were underwater, causing minor injuries to the divers. So the message is clear here. The U.S. and its allies are prepared to counterbalance China's growth in military capabilities and confrontational activities. The alliance has enhanced defensive capabilities for both the U.S. and the Philippines and Vietnam and many others, and it now focusing on interoperability, building capacity, modernizing these militaries, all of which are crucial for addressing contemporary security challenges in the Pacific. You might see something come along the lines of an interoperability push like we saw in Europe with NATO. The U.S. presence in the Philippines serves as a stabilizing force in the region marked by Chinese volatility, and it aids in deterring potential conflicts, particularly in the South China Sea. Notice that when the U.S. and all of its allies are conducting these things, a lot of the belligerent activities by China are reduced, but when the training events by the U.S. and its partners are limited or minimized due to whatever reasons, the Chinese seem to stand up and start conducting more aggressive maneuvers. The alliance underscores a commitment to maintaining a rules-based order in the South China Sea, ensuring freedom of navigation and the lawful use of sea resources. The Philippines fought China in international court and won over China building artificial islands at Mischief Reef, which is a part of the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. And from China's perspective, it has claim over all of this. It believes it is the most powerful country and can exert this influence. The U.S.-Philippines cooperation is seen as challenging that influence in the South China Sea and is tipping the regional balance more and more in favor of the U.S. The U.S. has been vocal about ensuring freedom of navigation in the South China Sea, and stronger U.S.-Philippine ties could lead to more assertive actions against China's maritime claims, especially China's aggressive activities. The South China Sea is a critical maritime route for global trade. It's humongous. The Taiwan Strait itself is a massive thoroughfare for trade. The evolving military dynamics could influence China's economic strategies and interests in the region. So the strengthening of military ties between the United States and the Philippines is a significant step in countering China. As China continues to face demographic decline and economic struggles, adding to a mix a growing list of nations that are allied against any kind of Chinese aggression in the region, and China is in a very precarious position moving forward. Any movements against Taiwan will likely lead to significant deaths amongst a population that frankly can't afford to lose young people. And from a financial perspective, it can't really economically afford a war against what is essentially 6 of its top 10 trading partners. I mean, China's top 4 trading partners are the U.S., South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. All 4 of those would stand up in the case of a situation in the South China Sea with that involves China. So that's kind of what's going on right now. More integration with the US and its allies in order to counter China. But I think this is why you're starting to see China come to the table a little bit more. A lot of it has to do with the economic reasons. Again, China's top economic trade partners are countries that are seen as supporting Taiwan's independence, and China wants to re-engage them rather than have to deal with this so-called de-risking and decoupling that has been taking place and has caused the Chinese economy to take a hit, along with a lot of Chinese past terrible economic policies that led them to rocketed growth over time, but in the long term is going to cause them many, many problems in the coming decades.